Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started on a quick one, hopefully today, to cover a topic just quickly on Bootstrap, which is Bootstrap Buttons. They're pretty commonly used on Bootstrap sites. I just wanted to cover them real quick in a lecture. And so, Bootstrap Buttons, per the documentation, use Bootstrap custom button styles for actions in forms, dialogues, and more. And so, what we haven't done in this class yet is make anything other than links. And so, to link one page to another is done with the anchor tag. And we've made our anchor tags look like buttons, and that is one thing you can do with Bootstrap Buttons is make links. However, actions and forms, so like a buy now button, in other words, something that might have some JavaScript wired up to it, which we'll get into when we get into the JavaScript portion of the class. So making these buttons congested, you can probably hear it in my voice, making these buttons functional is what we will spend a lot of time in this class learning in JavaScript. They support multiple sizes, so small, medium, large buttons, states, so there's a hover effect, there's a click state, mouse over, mouse down, all these kinds of what are called states and more. So easy to apply, give boring buttons an updated look. These can be used on anchor tags, button, or input tags. But if you look at the Bootstrap documentation, I would point out quickly that they mention here pretty quickly. So how is a button created? Like everything else in Bootstrap, you give it a class of BTN, and then a color by BTN primary gives you the blue, or BTN secondary, the gray. Obviously, you change the theme, right? Changing the Bootstrap theme changes these defaults values. But danger, warning, all these just by adding the classes. It says the button classes are designed to be used with the button element. However, you can also apply them on anchor tags or on input elements. And so we haven't actually coded in this class a button element, and we haven't coded an input element. Literally tomorrow, our lecture on forms, we will be introduced to these. Suffice to say, we have coded the anchor tag. It says though some browsers may apply a slightly different rendering, and so I'm not sure what it means to be designed to be used with the button element, but compatible with these others. I've seen them used quite a bit on anchor tags and quite a bit on input elements. So I don't think that there's any downfall. The only downfall that they mentioned is though some browsers may apply a slightly different rendering. Okay, so it might look a little different in different browsers. So there you go. They're designed to be used with the button tag. A pretty standard link, a pretty standard button, a pretty standard input type of button. Basically, this button type of button and input type of button, these are going to be standard form controls that we learn about tomorrow. But they look, they look pretty bland, if you will. So we can style them up to get rounded corners and colors and look like more clickable entities, right? By simply adding the class of button and then the color that you want. So it's not all that hard to use an anchor tag and style them as a button, or to use a button tag and style it as a button. There's also, these, if you don't want to make the whole button green, you can do an outline. So button outline primary just basically gives you a border and a blue primary color for the font. And then after that, really all that's left is the button sizing. There's button large, button small, and your standard, right? So large buttons, regular buttons, and small buttons. I told you I'd keep this one quick. 5 minutes. Record timing. Large buttons, normal buttons, disabled buttons. All right. Disabled attribute. We will learn, again, in JavaScript how to wire these buttons up to events that can do different functionality. Here they make these buttons that are block level buttons. Keep in mind, like anchor tags are considered inline elements, so they only take up as much width as the content that's within them. But you can have a block level button that'll take up the width of the container that it's in. Give you the little code chunk to do that here. Get into writing some JavaScript. Okay, kept that one short and simple. Buttons are pretty straightforward. Just a few Bootstrap classes to work with.